terrorist watch list. Crime is spreading from cities to small towns. Cartels cross the southern border with zero consequences. Illegal immigrants come to our cities, assault our brave law enforcement officers, rob our neighbors, and if they are in New York City, Democrats give them a taxpayer-funded debit card. Fentanyl is pouring into every crevice of the country and poisoning a generation of Americans. This is Joe Biden's border crisis. The media won't hold him accountable. The left won't hold him accountable. So you and I must, and we will hold him accountable at the ballot box. And the border crisis is not the only Biden crisis. We are in an economic crisis for hardworking Americans. President Trump left Joe Biden the strongest economy in my lifetime. Millions of new jobs, historic wage growth for blue-collar workers, the lowest unemployment in 50 years, booming U.S. manufacturing, and 15 million Americans lifted out of poverty. Yet Joe Biden and the Democrats quickly destroyed this booming economy by passing trillions of dollars of reckless spending, leading to painful Bidenflation, the worst inflation in my lifetime. Now, hardworking young families can't afford homes. Middle-class workers can't afford groceries. The cost for nearly everything has skyrocketed, from car insurance to family pizza night. And President Biden has the audacity to point to Wall Street and claim that the economy is booming and Bidenomics is working. It's offensive to the American people. And there's one more Biden crisis that I want to point out, and it's the most insidious of them all. It's one I witness every single day when I defend President Trump from the deep state. And that is the way Democrats attack our democracy. We saw it with the Russia collusion hoax. Obama spied and then lied. We saw it with how they unconstitutionally rigged the 2020 election. We saw it when the deep state colluded with big tech and used taxpayer dollars to censor the accurate Hunter Biden laptop story. And we see it today as unelected liberals try to unconstitutionally remove Trump from the ballot. And let's remember, Democrats objected to every Republican president in the 21st century. This is the same justice system that shrugs off the worst corruption we've ever seen in the White House from the Biden crime family. Here is a rule of thumb that I know you will agree with. What the Democrats accuse us of, they are guilty of 10 times over. And here's why this really matters. If they weaponize the government against President Trump, they can weaponize it against you. And they have. Joe Biden's weaponized DOJ has targeted Catholics, gun owners, conservatives, and even parents at school board meetings. It's up to you, my fellow American patriots, to save our republic. President Trump truly has the most powerful force behind him. You, we the people. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I want you to know. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever your age, if ever there was a time for patriots to step up and fight, this is it. And it will not be easy. When the media and the elites attack us for supporting President Trump, it's because they are scared. They're scared of what he will accomplish when he drains the swamp. And they're scared of what you will accomplish. So remember what President Trump taught us. When they attack you, we double down and fight back. We are counting on the people to save this great country, to save America, and save America we will. And I want to end with this. As we embark on the difficult path ahead, I again turn to Galatians 6:9. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. We, the people, will never give up on America. I will never give up on you. President Trump will never give up on you. Thank you. God bless you. God bless President Trump. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, CPAC. Thank you. Thanks, CPAC.
For the last 3 years, the Biden administration's attack on American energy weakened our standing in the world. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Europeans worried about Vladimir Putin cutting off their energy supply. Here at home, the Biden administration would blame Russia for rising gas prices, even though the cost of gas was already up 40% before the invasion. Meanwhile, Russia joined with other OPEC countries to cut oil production, further driving up the price of gasoline. We saw President Biden travel to Saudi Arabia and beg them for oil. More recently, Hamas terrorists launched a brutal attack on civilians. Under President Biden, Hamas ally Iran had a record year for oil exports in 2022, with their biggest customers being China and Venezuela. Surrendering American energy independence carries a steep price tag. It's something we should all remember because in 2024, energy is on the ballot.
Hey everyone, it's Matt Schlapp, and I'm not here with Mercy, but we do a great show called America Uncanceled several times a week, and make sure you tune in.
This president is calling my family, is calling me, is calling MAGA supporters enemy of America.
That's right.
I am the daughter of a Cuban political prisoner who fought for freedom, who fought against authoritarian and dictators. He sounds just like Fidel Castro did. Fidel Castro would target the enemies of his government and try to take them down. This is exactly what we're seeing with Joe Biden. He should be ashamed of himself. No American should be called a Nazi or be called an enemy of the state. Yeah. Those of us who love this country, and I have spent my whole life defending freedom in America.
Being woke is easy when it was just a call to defund the police or end capitalism, right? It's a little different when your fellow ideologues start cheering for your beheading. And here's a question. This next video, does this look like London to you? The pro-Hamas protests making for a very interesting political moment at Harvard. A university recently ranked the worst school for free speech in America. What would Harvard do in a moment like this, we all wondered? A school that will expel you for using the wrong pronoun and making a pink-haired trans girl cry. Well, in this moment, Harvard just miraculously transformed into free speech absolution. Apparently at Harvard, there's nothing offensive at all, even though everything's offensive at Harvard. There's nothing offensive at all about celebrating the murder of 1,000 people, including a whole bunch of kids.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Ohio, United States Senator J.D. Vance, and host of Rob Schmitt Tonight on Newsmax, Rob Schmitt.
Thank you. Oh. How are we doing, CPAC? Very good. That's nice to be here. This is my first CPAC, actually. I think it's your third, right?
I believe it's my third, yeah.
Third? Okay,
it's good to be here.
Good to see everybody here. All right, so we've got about 20 minutes here, and I kind of want to start the conversation on it's a 2-year anniversary of a war we've been funding now for 2 years in Ukraine. You've made a lot of headlines in the last couple of weeks with your position on this in the Senate. It's an unusual position. I want to kind of start off with that and just kind of ask you to clarify, what is your position on America's involvement in this war in Ukraine?
Sure. Well, first, Rob, thanks for doing this and thanks for interviewing me. I think that they had me be interviewed because they were worried I'd go on too long and get us off schedule. So here we are. But thanks to all of you for being here, and thanks to CPAC for having me. I mean, my argument is pretty simple. First of all, I think that it is absurd for us to devote so many resources, so much attention, and so much time to a border conflict 6,000 miles away when our own U.S. southern border is wide open. We've got to focus more on our own problems close to home. That's my first position. Really, if you dig in from there, what I've argued is, look, we know that Democrats are obsessed with Russia. The Russia collusion hoax, everything for the past 6 years has been Russia, 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 and it's clouded our judgment. We need to be smart about what we're doing. Now, of course, we don't like that Russia invaded Ukraine, but the question becomes, what can we do about it? And there are a couple of separate ways, I think, in which the elites of this country, Democrats and Republicans, have fundamentally failed the American people in this moment. The first is that we have expended decades worth of supplies of American weapons on the Ukraine-Russia conflict when we don't make enough of that stuff on our own. We know the story. One of the reasons Donald Trump was elected in 2016 is we don't manufacture enough of our own stuff anymore. So we need to make more of our own stuff, but they've put us in this position where we don't do enough of it. So we don't make enough of our own stuff. And at the same time that we don't make enough of our own stuff, they want us to send all of our critical weapons overseas. Well, what happens, God forbid, if the Chinese invade Taiwan? What happens, God forbid, if there's a direct threat to American soil? We now no longer have the weapons in store to actually prosecute our own national security. Let's focus on our own problems. That's the first failure, Rob. And the second thing, if I may say, is the way that these guys have obsessively focused on the problems of Ukraine to the exclusion of everything else that's going on in our country. I have seen colleagues of mine, even Republican colleagues, who are much more emotionally invested in what's going on 6,000 miles away than they are in their own country. If the thing you care most about, we can agree to disagree on Ukraine. I imagine a lot of you agree with me, some of you don't. Yeah. But if the thing you care most about is a conflict 6,000 miles away, you should not be a leader of this country. Focus on our own country's problems.
And that was the crux of my question is, and especially that what you're describing is so evident in the Senate, I think, more than anywhere. It's what is that? Clarify what that is that exists inside of Washington. Why is it that when people go to Washington, they forget about the rest of the country? And that I think that all the wealth of this country exists inside of this bubble here in this city. And why is it that the rest of the world becomes so important and the domestic issues that we have go to the background? What happens when you get to Washington?
So here's what I think's going on, Rob. I think it's hard for these guys to psychologically accept that they have let the country become weaker on their watch. It was, of course, Donald Trump, a complete outsider to politics, who ran in 2016 saying, you people, the bipartisan consensus in this country has failed and we need something else. Now, of course, he was born, I believe, in the 1940s, so he's seen all of this happen, but he's seen it happen as an outsider with the recognition that new leadership needs to happen. Now, here, let me just give you an example here. So my family, obviously, we're all from Ohio, but I have a lot of family from eastern Kentucky, the Appalachian part of Kentucky. And the county that my grandparents were born in, the life expectancy in that county is 67. 67, that's comparable to a lot of third world countries. If you are a leader and you have allowed that to happen to your own country in your own backyard, if you're Mitch McConnell and you're a senator from Kentucky and you care more about the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine than about the fact that your own citizens are getting murdered by fentanyl brought in by cartels, and that's lowering life expectancy, you need to look in the mirror and accept that your job has been a failure. You've been a failure at your job of leadership.
And what is the diagnosis of that, though? What happens to them, though? Because there's no reason why that should be that way. That's what I don't understand.
The reason I think it's that way is because it's easier to look at the problem 6,000 miles away, to look yourself in the mirror and accept that you've been a failure in leading your country over the past generation. Look, think about this. The bipartisan consensus over the last 40 years in this country, it's seen the rise of China. It's seen the destruction of the American manufacturing base, which is why we don't have enough weapons to send to Ukraine and also focus on ourselves. I'm the father of 3 little kids, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Take your kids to a pharmacy today and be told that there's not enough amoxicillin for the kids of our own country because we let the communist Chinese make the antibiotics that we put into the bodies of our kids. This is a legacy of failure from these guys, and it's very hard for them to look themselves in the mirror and say, we screwed this up. And of course, the biggest screw up, the biggest problem we have right now is the American southern border. And if you're not focused on that, and you're not getting fired up about that, and you're not pulling all-nighters at the U.S. Senate about that, you're in the wrong job.
Can I ask you, that's a good point. I want to ask about the Senate border bill that, is
gone through that is, basically being held up in the House at this point. Sure. Johnson doesn't want to bring it to the floor. How did a bill like that get crafted? I mean, was there any actual concern? I mean, was it leadership that put it together? Was there any actual concern about the border, or was it just used as a ruse to get money for foreign wars? I mean, how did something like that happen?
Oh, how much time do we have, Rob? This is we could go a long time on this. Here's basically what happened. So any negotiation, we're divided government, right? Democrats control the presidency, Republicans control the House. The thought was, going into it, Republicans are divided about Ukraine, but we're united on border security. We want border security. Democrats are divided on, or are united on Ukraine. They're divided on border security. So there's the seed of a negotiation, a successful negotiation. The Democrats will give us border security, and then we'll give them money for Ukraine. Now, set to the side whether you like that negotiation, that was the way it was set up. The problem, Rob, is the border security was always fake. And I've heard from Democratic colleagues, I've heard from Democratic staffers who have said the Republican leadership in the Senate never pushed that hard for border security. There was always this kind of wink, wink. Well, we've got to go through the motions here. We've got to convince the conservative knuckle draggers like J.D. Vance that we can care about border security, but we don't really care about it that much. So the American people got screwed in that deal.
So then they don't want a secure border.
Exactly. They at least care more about Ukraine than they do about border security in their own country. It was always a fig leaf. It was always the idea was, we're going to write another $61 billion to Ukraine, and we'll sort of, throw a bone to the people of CPAC and say we tried to do border security. But think about it. Yeah. If you go into a negotiation saying, we don't actually care about the thing that we're allegedly negotiating over, you're not going to get anything, and that's exactly what happened over the last couple of weeks in Washington, D.C. It's a disgrace, and every person here should be pissed off about it.
That's exactly, I'm sure they are. And to clarify, when we're talking about you're not anti-Ukraine. You don't have an anti-Ukraine position. You don't want Ukraine to lose this war. They try and paint anybody that wants perhaps diplomacy in this situation, which is something on my show we talk about all the time. We talk about with Rick Grinnell all the time. Like, what happened to diplomacy the last 2 years of this war? Why is nobody fighting to figure out a way to end this war? Why is it just send more money, send more bullets, send more guns? Why is that the only option that we have here? Why is that the only option that they're willing to look at? Why is it that there's no Tony Blinken in the room trying to figure out a way to get out of this thing? It feels like they want the war.
It's all, Rob, I hate to say it, but I think it's all about the money. It's all about money for people who are getting, look, let's be honest, whether it's the reconstruction that will come to Ukraine hopefully soon, but maybe not for another couple of years, or whether it's the direct supply of resources, whether it's the corruption in the country, we know that a lot of money is getting skimmed off the top here. We don't know how much, we don't know exactly how it works, but we know there are real problems. And I think another thing that's going on, Rob, is that these people have convinced themselves, meaning the leadership of our country today, that diplomacy is a bad word. I remember when Donald Trump, maybe the most important thing he said during the campaign was, what's in America's interest is for the killing to stop. Like, such a simple insight, right? We want the killing to stop. We want energy prices to come down, food prices to come down. All of these things are made worse by a never-ending conflict in Eastern Europe. But these guys, if you talk about diplomacy, you're a Putin shill. Where have we heard that from? We've heard that for the first 4 years of Donald Trump's administration, that he was a Putin shill, even though Vladimir Putin, the only time he didn't invade another country was when Donald Trump was president. It doesn't even pass the smell test, but these people have gotten themselves convinced that it's a bad word to engage in statesmanship. It's crazy, it's bad for the country, but it's where we are today.
It's the politics, it's so insidious.
Yes, it is.
It's so frustrating to, when the people in this room are paying attention, and most people aren't, which is why these stupid little games work the way they do. But if you're paying attention and you're watching this and you're seeing it, it's so frustrating to see that when you're just trying to do the right thing and you get painted as a certain way, they vilify people for just having a difference of opinion.
Yep.
I mean, that's the most dangerous thing. And in this country, we see that constantly, and they have complete control of the media narrative.
So It's funny, Rob. There are, I believe, 3 U.S. senators who are on a permanent lifetime ban list to Russia, and I'm one of them, right? So the mainstream press, the mainstream press calls me a Putin shill. I've never even talked to the guy. I don't get to go to Moscow to have the pierogies in Russia. Like, it's a lose-lose proposition for me. But of course, it's good for the country to have somebody saying, how long does this go on? How much money are we supposed to funnel into this country? And importantly, Rob, something needs to be said. You asked me, am I anti-Ukraine? Of course I'm not. In fact, I think these people are very brave. Most of them are just obviously good people who are trying to do the right thing. The average age for a soldier in the Ukrainian military right now is about 45 years old. Yeah. I'm 39. I was in the Marine Corps when I was 19 years old. That is not a healthy thing. So if you care about Ukraine, but most importantly, if you care about America, you should be wanting this thing to come to some diplomatic resolution. I think that's the only hope from here on out.
Zelensky's not pushing for that, though. I mean, that's the one thing that confuses a lot of people. His people are dying. I don't have any question that the guy loves his country. He wants to be in that country. He's a Ukrainian. He's letting his own people get killed on the field, and there's no push for an end.
So this is interesting, Rob. What Zelensky and a lot of folks in Ukraine have said, and I was in sort of Munich a couple of days ago, actually, the big national security confab, and I was pretty much the only person who believed the things that I do there. People said, well, you're on an island. I said, well, I'm on an island maybe in Munich, but I'm not on an island in the United States of America. The majority of the American people actually agree with my worldview here, and I think that's important. But what the leaders of Ukraine from Zelensky on down have said, that there was a negotiated peace to be had back in the early days of fighting. You know who prevented it? The Biden administration and Boris Johnson, who was the prime minister of the United Kingdom. So I actually think that there was an opportunity for peace. I still think there's an opportunity for peace. You just have to get the wackos and the idiots out of the White House.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I want to talk about 2024 here for a moment. I mean, there's new polling out, it seems almost every day at this point. When you look even at the specific issues, former President Biden, I should say, is getting crushed. You look at specifically immigration, foreign policy, he's getting eviscerated. And people get excited, right? Because they think, oh, great, Trump has a great chance in the next election. That's wonderful. What I see and what I think terrifies me, if you look at a country that's been pulled for decades to the left, 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 you got to think long term. What I see is, that this next election is going to be competitive. It's not going to be a landslide. Look at what they're able to do to a country and still compete electorally and still compete for power. I mean, I've never seen, I could never have imagined that Biden was going to come in and just start dismantling every single thing that works about this country as fast as he can, and then somehow get to a point where, it's going to be close. I mean, you can look at the polls all you want, but damn well when that election comes down, it's going to be tight. It's going to come down to 4 or 5 states, and it's going to be close. How have we gotten to the point in this country where I almost feel like we're just full of guilt and self-loathing that we elect people that dismantle everything that we love about our country?
I think we have to be honest about 2 things, Rob. This is by design. So there are 2 major structural problems in the American Republic right now. The first is that we gave control over our entire information ecosystem to big technology companies that hate the values of the people in this room. Yeah. If you really want to have a free and fair election in 2024, the most important thing, break up Google. Break up Google and return power over the information economy to the American people. Just think about this. That's where 99% of people, regardless of their politics, get their information. We know now that it's completely dominated by left-wing radicals. It has a complete monopoly. I think it's illegal, by the way, to have that monopoly control over information. You go in and type in, did Donald Trump say such and such about immigration? Or is Joe Biden too old to be president of the United States? Well, the answer is yes, right? You don't need a Google search for that. But the results will be so biased and so corrupted in a left-wing direction. That's one of the reasons why we have major problems with our elections in this country. One other point, Rob, I didn't realize this until a few weeks ago. The immigration chaos, we talk about it all the time. We talk about the sex trafficking, these poor kids who are brought into this country by the cartels and sold into slavery. We, of course, talk about the fentanyl problem. The reason why we have a border crisis, it is by design. Biden is invading the country with people who he knows are going to vote disproportionately for Democrats. And this is an important point. Again, I didn't realize this until a few weeks ago. California has 5 more congressional representatives than it should. Do you know why? They count illegal aliens for purposes of assigning apportionment in Congress. So when these guys flood the country with millions of people who shouldn't be here, they destroy the voting power of citizens in our own republic. This is by design, and this is maybe the last very good chance we have to stop it in 2024.
It is something else. I want to finish off. I want to talk about Trump's legal woes. Obviously he still has a number of cases against him, but and again, we just talked about the polling shows Biden in a lot of trouble. Do you really think that they're going to try and throw this man in jail?
Absolutely. They're going to try with everything.
But will they be able to do it?
Absolutely not. I think the American people are too strong. We're too woken up to it. But look, I was thinking about this earlier because I had some success in the private sector before I got into Washington. That's unusual for most of my colleagues in the Senate from either side of the aisle. Most people in politics, think about this, from Nancy Pelosi's stock picking to others, they get richer from having served in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump is maybe the first politician in my lifetime who will be much poorer for having served his country. That is the best evidence that we should reelect him in 2024. He's actually sacrificed for this country in a way that's very unusual in politics. But because he actually does it for the right reasons, they're going to try to destroy him. And they've been trying to destroy him. What was the Russia collusion hoax? It was about destroying Donald Trump. This ridiculous New York fraud case, it's about destroying the guy's wealth before he re-enters the Oval Office. All of these lawfares, they're all about showing the American people that you can have the president you want, but we're going to try to destroy him if it's not approved by the elites of this country. It is why we have to renominate him. For the folks in South Carolina who are voting tomorrow, we can't let the crazies and we can't let the judges determine who our nominee is. We decide who our nominee is, and we decide who our president is too.
Well said. Well said. I think we'll leave it there. Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate it. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys very much.
Great to have you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
See you guys.
I.O.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to visit the CPAC store powered by Revere Payments, located on the lower level in CPAC Central. And don't forget to vote in the CPAC straw poll. Go to cpac.org/straw poll and enter your PIN number located on your badge. Remember, every vote counts.
On January 7, 2021, they tried to silence our voices forever as 1.2 million Americans were deplatformed, including our great real president, Donald Trump. It's been 3 long years of fighting to save our country and secure our elections, but now our voice is bigger than ever. God has blessed me with frankspeech.com and our courageous Lindell TV lineup with Emerald Robinson, Steve Bannon, and the great Lou Dobbs, along with hundreds of other hosts. We want you to be informed and involved as we work to save our country. So watch our epic lineup on Lindell TV at frankspeech.com. Thank you and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, The Better View. Please welcome journalist and host of The Megyn Kelly Show, Megyn Kelly, and CPAC Senior Fellow, Mercedes Schlapp.
That's amazing.
How's everybody doing?
Come
the
on.
media told me nobody was here. Look at all these people.
Megyn, this is your inaugural CPAC appearance.
Yes, I was never allowed to do this kind of thing when I was at Fox, and now I'm free.
You're free. You're free. And let's talk a little bit about this. So there's this rise of alternative media. I don't even want to call it alternative media, but it is this media that's trying to present the truth. It's trying to present a more comprehensive picture. How have you seen media change in your career?
Oh my God, hugely. I mean, when I was a lawyer back in the dark ages, I remember seeing clips of this woman, Jessica Savage. And if you're old enough, you remember who that is. And if you're young, you've never heard of her. But she was on NBC, and she was beautiful, and she rose at the same time as Connie Chung, and made it at a time when very few women were even in news. And that was the era of like straight facts, no personality, just the facts. And that was a golden era in some ways. It wasn't completely infected with left-wing bias. It was there, but it wasn't as bad. And then you flash forward to during the Trump era when they openly declared their bias. They leaned into it. They thought it was important to say their own opinion. He's a bigot. He's a racist. He's a this. He's a that. And completely sacrificed their objectivity. And in so doing, sacrificed the industry. I mean, it was, I've said before, it was an assisted suicide. Trump helped them, but they did it to themselves.
Yeah, but we just saw, for example, when President Trump won the Iowa caucus, and you saw Rachel Maddow come out on MSNBC saying, no, we're not going to put out the whole speech.
Yes.
No, because because she wanted her voice to be heard and not allow the viewers, now we know the viewers there are, lean left, to listen to what Donald Trump had to say. I mean, this is pure propaganda.
So this is her problem. She never had children, and she decided her audience must be her children. They need to be babied like little toddlers because their mommy can't allow them to hear any of the naughty words that Trump is going to speak because she explained they traffic in truth at MSNBC, which is the biggest lie we've heard out of anybody over there.
Yes.
I mean, after all the years of Russiagate, for her to actually look at the audience and say, we don't traffic in lies and we can't allow a non-true thing to be said to you, and I'll be the policewoman of it, please. I mean, people know it's a lie.
You're right about that. It's the media is this leftist media, this propaganda machine. They literally line up the Democrat talking points. And it is so much of this Trump hatred like I've never, ever seen. And quite frankly, they hate the Trump activists. They hate the MAGA voter. They are insulted by the MAGA voter. What is that disconnect? Is it just New York and like the New York media, that kind of elite media that is not understanding where the rest of America is?
It's not just them. I mean, it's really all media other than alternative. But this is, I think, what CNN is struggling with right now. At least MSNBC has kind of owned how much it hates Republicans for a long time. They're not faking it. I mean, I give them points.
I mean, they're fake news, but they're not faking it.
Right. That's exactly. There's a distinction there.
Right.
But CNN, back when I was on the primetime of Fox News, I used to watch CNN as I was getting ready for the Kelly File. They were kind of boring, but they were straight down the middle, and you get the basic facts. Then during Trump, they completely broke. I mean, Trump broke CNN. He ruined CNN. They ruined themselves, but he gave them the invitation and they took it.
Right.
And now they want us to see them as possible to trust. Now we're supposed to look at the same anchors who said, not only do I disagree with you, I hate you.
Yeah.
I can't stand you. Your children, everything that is important to you, I loathe. And you're supposed to say, he could be fair. Sure, I trust her. It's of course a broken model, and I do think that's why one of the reasons why alternative media is doing so well.
Well, the Trump derangement syndrome grows even further when we're talking about lawfare. This is something that we see the propaganda machine, something you would see in an authoritarian regime. Then you're moving towards this sense of lawfare, which is really, I think, a scary tactic that's being used by the left. But then it gets interesting. I felt like I was watching a soap opera when I was watching Fani Willis and her love interest, Nathan Wade, right?
Yes.
I mean, that was one of the craziest TV court, that you can imagine.
It was like a soap opera.
It was like a soap opera.
I love what's happening in that case. I'm not going to lie.
Tell us more.
So I was not going to do a show today because I was coming here to be with all of you. So I took the train down, And I took the train down, but then I don't know if you saw today's news on Fani Willis.
Oh, please tell us.
It's amazing. And so we did a show. I just did a show from the hotel room before I came down here. And it'll be out later, the Megyn Kelly Show. Download for free. In any event, it's insane. So these two prosecutors, Fani Wade and the man she brought in, Nathan Wade, admit that they had an affair. They denied it started.
Fani Willis, you already changed her name.
I go with Fani. I think we all know it's Fani. Okay. Fani Willis. I keep saying Fani Wade.
I thought you said Fani. You said Fani Wade.
She's Fani Willis, but I keep saying Fani Wade. I mean, I'm hoping something good could come out of this for them. So they both took the stand in this trial. They denied that they had an affair any time prior to her hiring them. And now, bit by bit, we're learning, of course, it appears very much the opposite. And what happened today was the Trump team they subpoenaed the cell phone records of Nathan Wade during 2021. And according to the private investigator who's got expertise in analyzing cell phone tower data and cell phone data. He called her. They spoke on the phone in 11 months, 2,000 times, 1,800 texts. I averaged it out. It was about 180 texts a day. I went back and looked at mine with my husband. We were at 1/5 of the ratio that those two were. He was allegedly over there, according to the cell phone analysis, between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. and then midnight and 5 a.m. And according to CBS News, she's going to get ready to defend this today by saying, he was part of my kitchen cabinet team.
Oh, yeah.
For discussing random cases. Because, when you have business to discuss, who doesn't have their platonic colleague over at 4 a.m.? We were saying it wasn't a booty call, it was a fanny call.
Too much? No, not at all. Keep going.
But anyway, can I just put a opinion on that?
Please, no.
So I do believe they're both going to get booted off of this case.
Really?
I believe they lied under oath to this judge to save their own skins. They're prosecuting Trump and his colleagues for lying. That is one of the main things that she's accusing them of. And the reason it's so delicious is because the same thing, I believe, that made Fani Willis lie under oath, despite the fact that it would be wrong for a civilian, but it's really wrong for an officer of the court, is the same thing that made her bring this BS prosecution. Yeah. It's her partisan, dishonest nature. She wanted to get Trump, just like Letitia James wanted to get Trump, and Alvin Bragg and Jack Smith. And I really think that the brilliant lawfare artists on the defense side in Georgia should have a talk with the other defense lawyers in these other cases. Because if this is how we're going to fight, dirty, below the belt, making up charges, breaking our system of rule of law, which didn't use to prosecute political enemies, then we should fight back the same way. It should be brought right back on all these prosecutors.
Going into what we've seen with all of these cases, I mean, you've got the Stormy Daniels case against Trump as well. That's going to be heard here shortly. You've got Jack Smith's obsession with Donald Trump. Yep. You've got, obviously, the civil fraud case in New York, Judge Enderon, who $340 million. It's
going to be $450 million.
400 by the time we're done with this?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to break this man. They're trying to destroy his life, destroy his family, all for political persecution.
We've really crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah.
We never used to do this to each other. Like, we would fight, we knew we disagreed, we'd fight, bare-knuckled brawling, the two sides. But we would never put a man's freedom at risk just because we disagreed with him.
Right.
We would never try to devastate his business and disincentivize any good man or woman for running for office, right? Like, who would run? Don't you know, like, a couple of great people in your life who you're like, God, you'd be great to run? Who that's sane would run if you thought this was a likely outcome? I asked Trump about it. I interviewed him in September, and I was like, what are you doing this for? You already were president. You could be in Scotland doing the golf, which you love, and enjoying your grandkids, and he isn't built that way. Mm-hmm. And I do think he thinks he's got unfinished business for the country, and I think the country feels the same.
So what legal advice would you give Donald Trump?
Honestly, keep at it. Because I'll tell you, Trump's got 4 criminal trials coming his way. And in order to avoid, I heard Rob and JD talking about, is he likely to, go to jail? And I do think JD's right. Senator Vance, they'll try to make him go to jail. But Trump needs to pull an inside straight in order to avoid jail. And can I tell you something? He's doing it. He's doing it. I've been watching these cases very carefully. It's not a lock, but it's going as well as it can go. He's obviously got very good lawyers around him. The New York case is BS. He's not facing real jail time in that one. That should be a slap on the wrist, and he is going to be convicted, but it's such BS. He allegedly paid a porn star to be quiet, and then they're mad he didn't document his hush payment. That's the very nature of a hush payment, is that you don't write it down and tell everybody about it. Anyway, so that's that one. Then you got the 2 Jack Smith litigations, where it's all, January 6th and the Mar-a-Lago documents. Well, the Mar-a-Lago documents is getting slow-rolled because it's so complex. Does the jury need security clearance? Did the lawyers need security clearance to see the documents he had? This is not getting tried before November. Mm-hmm. And if Trump can win, both of those federal prosecutions go away. He doesn't need to pardon himself. He just needs to pull the DOJ off of the cases. That's it. All he needs to do is delay those 2 cases until post-November, and it's happening. Yeah. Now, the one in D.C., she really wants to try this case. Judge Chutkan would love to put Trump behind bars. And that one he's vulnerable in because of the jury pool, but that one, too, has got the main heart of it, the obstruction charge, and I'm trying not to bore you, but the main charge is the obstruction charge. You obstructed a proceeding of Congress on January 6th. That's going up to the Supreme Court through the other January 6th defendants, and their case is very strong. Right. So the heart of that Trump case could get thrown out through a proceeding that's going up with other defendants. And that leaves us with Georgia and my girl Fannie.
Girl Fannie! Go Fannie!
And if Fannie Willis is thrown off this case, her entire office is thrown off this case, and there are real questions about whether there is another prosecutor down in Georgia who would take it and wants to try it.
Yeah, Fannie Cash. Fannie Cash. Yeah. That should be her name. Shifting gears here. Obviously, you're a mom, and you have 2 boys, 1 girl. We were having this discussion as a mother of 5 girls. And parents out there, they're freaking out. They're looking at the fact that this leftist agenda has penetrated into their schools. This is a topic we've been discussing here, where you have 14-year-old girls having mastectomies. They're getting puberty blockers. You have the medical industry supporting this. How do we stop this?
If you take nothing else away, I hope, from anything I say tonight, please take this away. Fight. You have to. You can't remain silent to protect your reputation or how people feel about you. Parents need to stand up against this. Your child's safety, and apart from their safety, their opportunity, the chance at winning, the chance of having the glory of crossing the finish line first, it's all in danger if you don't say anything. And I know it's scary, you're afraid, you want to be seen as empathetic and not a bigot, not a transphobe. Eventually, hopefully you'll get to the point where many of us are, which is, I don't care what you call me.
Exactly.
I couldn't care less what you think of me when I'm standing up for children's rights. A couple of things here. Number one, they tell us that the puberty blockers into the cross-sex hormones, it's fine. Puberty blockers are just a pause. It's a lie. 97% of kids who go on puberty blockers will do cross-sex hormones immediately thereafter. And you know what that does? That will sterilize your child. Now your child is more than likely going to be sterile and 0 sexual enjoyment for the rest of his or her life. Did you know that? There will be no sexual pleasure for your child. You want to make that decision for a 13-year-old? You think they know what they're giving up? There was a detransitioner recently who managed to get pregnant, which is against all the odds. And she was in tears at the birth of her baby, not fully tears of joy, but also because she couldn't breastfeed. She had had her breast chopped off when she was a teenager, a young teenager. Yeah. And you know, Mercedes, it's like when I had my first child, I, of course, went through the 9 months of pregnancy. The moment I felt like I really became a mother was when they put that baby to your breast and you're like, holy mother, right? Yeah. It's this before and after moment.
Don't men, what is it, chest feed?
I can't.
What it is?
And there's no such thing as chest feeding.
And the male pregnancy, that's the one I'm like, really, people?
Chest feeding is child abuse. They pump these men full of hormones and then so they can produce something approximating milk. And then this poor tortured baby is in agony trying to get enough out of there. It's a lie. It's a lie.
Megan, but this is the thing. The left has hijacked our language. They have changed what would be common sense, just language. We have to now do pronouns. Every time I see these young people out there where they on Instagram and they're like, she, her, they, it's like,
no.
Seriously.
No. No.
Pronouns are for English class.
Don't do
not
them.
for but it's like, how can these parents get to their kids and their grandkids and basically say, please stop this? You're being brainwashed.
You have to inoculate them at home. You know, I mean, you have to get them, they're going to be in a leftist world. It's a leftist media, leftist sports, leftist corporate America, not to mention the academy, the universities and so on. You have to inoculate them at home by talking about it.
Right.
We've told our kids, don't say your pronouns. If somebody asks you what your pronouns are, you just say, I'm not comfortable with that. You don't have to do it. Just because some leftist tries to make you, you don't have to do that. Right. And let me tell you something. There was a great piece online, and I love the line, the title of it. Pronouns are rohypnol. They dull your senses. It's the way the left controls language is to make you behave the way they want you to behave. You know, like, this is racist, this is transphobic, this is so that you won't do the thing, you won't say the thing. And saying the pronouns is how they get you to bend on gender ideology. They dull your brain to the incongruity of calling a he a she. And they're doing it intentionally. They want you to get dulled to that fake reality they're shoving down our throats.
Right.
You have to resist. You can say with all due respect, I don't do that. And look, if I'm sitting across, and I've actually had this conversation with Caitlyn Jenner, but if I were sitting across from Caitlyn Jenner, would I intentionally be like, he? No, I'm not looking to be a jerk. But I would not say, you know, what's it like to be a woman? How about being a girl, no, that's a lie. And I do think we need to reject pronouns and the lies of language because otherwise we're pulled in. We're part of the problem.
And then on the biological men playing in women's sports, which again, I cannot believe that we are talking about this now. Like, I just cannot believe that we have to face this where our girls have to be put in a situation where they can actually get hurt.
And they are getting hurt.
Yeah, and they are getting hurt.
There was Peyton McNabb in North Carolina who still has permanent injuries, including mental issues, brain issues, and paralysis down her arm after a male volleyball player posing as a girl spiked the ball so hard in her head that she suffered permanent damage. There was a girl playing field hockey in Massachusetts just a couple of months ago who got all of her teeth knocked out. As a boy, pretending to be a girl, slammed that field hockey ball hard into her face. There were 3 girls in Massachusetts this week, in Lowell, Massachusetts, who were hurt playing basketball against a 6-foot-tall boy pretending to be a girl. That's the way you should say it. There's no such thing as trans anything. It's boy pretending to be a girl who hurt 3 girls to the point where they had to end the game early, and the coach pulled the team. Someone's going to die. Someone's going to die. Find your voice. Fight. It's not fair, and it's not safe.
No. And I think, I will say, in this room, we've got the fighters. These are the people who go back to their community, and they make a difference. They are so incredible in terms of getting involved in their communities, and so many organic groups have come out of CPAC, and they are the ones involved in so much of the election process as well, which is incredible.
God bless.
I want to move to the college campuses. We know we had a panel up here. Would Moses go to Harvard, which I loved. Of course, Schlapp comes up with these great panel names. And it made it on Jimmy Kimmel, which was kind of funny. So let me ask you this. There is, again, you stay shocked because you're wondering, how can so many young people not understand the role of Israel and not understand the Hamas terrorism propaganda message that's being pushed through TikTok, through social media to these young people, and then you've created this animosity on campus for Jewish students.
Yeah. Well, I think there are 2 things going on there. Number one, back to the inoculation point. I don't think anybody could do this to my kids. No one's going to do this to your kids, Mercy. They know.
No, we disown them, quite frankly. Well,
we've gotten in early with our children. We've shared our values, and we've talked to our kids about what is going to be done to them on college campuses. And we, in our family, do not allow our children to use social media, which parents misunderstand. You can give them a phone.
Yeah.
You can give them a phone, and they can message.
Yes.
And they can. We actually do some YouTube, which I know is technically social media, but like, my daughter watches Dance Moms on it. It's not,
Oh, don't talk about Dance Moms.
But TikTok,
Rumble,
Snapchat.
we like Rumble.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm talking about like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. Like, these are not appropriate tools for children. And in particular, TikTok is where this begins. So I do think keeping them away from social media in the young formative years and you reinforcing your own values and what's true is important. And keeping the right news sources funneling to them so they're hearing facts that you know are real. Not left. It's not like, don't leave Al Jazeera on the TV while you go off for your run. But I also think that like when they get to the university, they're going to need to find their spines and their friends. This is one of the reasons why I love Turning Point. Like, we have to get to young people and make sure they know they're not alone. You may feel like you're the only conservative voice on campus, but you're not. The TikTok in particular is a problem because that is really funneling pro-Hamas information and pro-Bin Laden.
And yes.
You saw literally these morons
yeah.
were like, you know that Bin Laden, really, you have to hand it to that Bin Laden. He has a point. No, you do not have to hand it to Bin Laden.
That's right.
You've got to actually do some study and some homework. So the only plus of the anti-Semitism that we've been seeing on college campuses, the only upside to all of this in the wake of the horrific October 7th attack, is that our Jewish friends who were more left-leaning and believed the DEI lie, I think are now seeing the truth, which is that it's pernicious and it's actually really dangerous. And so, it's not okay to, whether it's black and white or Hispanic and Jews, whatever, it's not okay to divide us by race or ethnicity. We're all the same. It's why I don't like the Black national anthem. There's only one national anthem. We don't need it by color or by creed, right? So, in any event, I think all that's important messaging, but the number one thing is to shore up your child before he gets there.
No, that is true. That is true. Although I've met a lot of parents that say, my kid was conservative, they go to college, and then I lose them. And that's a challenge for these parents, right? It's it's heartbreaking. And then you're just, literally, I feel like we have to constantly I say pray every day for your kid. Pray every day. Because they have to understand, being here, you know you're going to get persecuted. You know you're going to suffer. And you went through it. Yep. I mean, they tried to destroy you.
Yep.
But you rose up again.
Well, there's a lovely feeling to that. I'd rather people try to destroy me and me keep going than people never try to destroy me at all. You know, you don't know how strong you are until somebody keeps knocking you down and you keep getting back up. And I really, I think it's true for my kids, and I think it's true for me. You know, mine are little. They're 14, 12, and 10. But in the same way, I really kind of hope, I know it sounds weird, but I hope they all get their hearts broken. Mm-hmm. I hope they get rejected. I hope they have a big failure. I hope they strike out. I hope all those things happen to them because I want them to be strong. They're going to have to be. And you don't get strong if nobody ever challenges you or hurts you or comes at you. And I think for all of you guys, if you're active and you're activists and you're out there fighting these good fights, it's a blessing. It's an important role, but you also have to be tough. And you, just like I, have to realize that there's a difference between the you and the branded you. Right? Megyn Kelly it's a brand because it's on a show name and people know it from news. But Megyn Kelly, the person, is also there. And when I see the attacks and people write the terrible things, I never take that as an attack on Megyn Kelly, the person. That's Megyn Kelly, the brand that they're attacking. The public-facing Megyn Kelly. And that's fine. For me, that works to make that distinction. It makes it very easy for me not to hold a grudge and to continue fighting and to continue seeing these people and not to become bitter.
Yes.
Right? To be a happy warrior. So you have the same thing. You're going to put your public face out there and you're going to say these things that are controversial and nobody else is saying them. And they're going to call you the names and maybe ostracize you. Maybe you don't get invited to the best cocktail parties. Those aren't the best. And you make the distinction in your own life between the professional you that's got to make these points to keep your kids safe, et cetera, and the real you who they don't know and they couldn't possibly be criticizing.
What message of hope do you want to give this group? Look, we're in, I would say, one of the toughest times of our country. We feel we don't feel safe. We feel there is so much chaos all around us. And people are worried. They're worried.
I understand that entirely. I think you guys should feel great because the country is divided, but I actually happen to think it's not as bad as many think. Look at the left. The left is coming over on immigration, right? They're coming over on some of the Trump economic programs. They're a little slow. But I'm just saying, the right is winning these fights, right? They're winning. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes Governor Abbott sending the busloads up to New York and Chicago and California.
Yes.
These people have to feel the actual effects of their policies, and then slowly but surely they start to see reason. On the gender stuff, 70% of the American population believes that boys should not be playing in girls' sports, no matter what they declare themselves. That's something on which there's common ground. DEI, as I said before, that people are starting to shift on that and see the folly of this dividing us by race. And even those who aren't seeing it are going to have to live with it because we have a great U.S. Supreme Court right now that is issuing ruling after ruling, setting things straight, right? From Dobbs to the affirmative action case, and we're going to get a whole lot more like it. So that's not to say that they haven't crossed a lot of disturbing norms with the lawfare and so on. But I do think regular Americans aren't as divided and are starting to see the wisdom in a lot of these fights the right has been fighting for a long, long time.
Let's fight, let's win. Ladies and gentlemen, Megyn Kelly.
Thank you. Oh, that's nice. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes day 2 of CPAC 2024, where globalism goes to die. Please make sure to visit the CPAC store, powered by Revere Payments, located on the lower level in CPAC Central. And don't forget to vote in the CPAC straw poll. Go to cpac.org/straw poll and enter your PIN number located on your badge. Remember, every vote counts. What's important now, though, is we ask you to please exit the Potomac Ballroom so we may reset for tomorrow's event. Thank you.